Welcome to a journey into one of the most sublime and deceptive secrets of Japanese garden art, Shakkei technique. It's more than just a landscaping approach. It's a profound philosophy that allows a small, contained space to feel infinite. Imagine your garden not as a solitary island, but as a carefully curated lens. We are here to learn how to borrow the beauty of the world outside, a distant forest, a towering pagoda, even the sky itself, and weave it seamlessly into your own private sanctuary. This technique transforms a mundane boundary into a visual bridge, creating an unparalleled sense of visual depth in garden design.
At its heart, Shakkei, or borrowed scenery in design, is the practice of integrating distant landscape elements into the composition of a garden. It requires patience and a designer's eye, viewing everything from beyond the fence, a neighbor's distinctive roofline, a stand of mature trees, a church steeple, as a free design element. This is an ancient technique, perfected by master gardeners who understood that the mind's perception is the ultimate canvas. By strategically concealing the undesirable and highlighting the magnificent, we create a powerful illusion in garden design, making a small space appear vast and deeply connected to its surroundings.
Historically, Japanese landscaping secrets categorize Shakkei into four main types. Enchanting, or distant borrowing, uses majestic elements like mountains or distant forests. Shakkei-chi, or near borrowing, incorporates immediate features, such as a neighboring pond or grove. Then there's vertical borrowing, which uses towering elements like trees or cliffs, and horizontal borrowing, which extends the eye laterally along a horizon or pathway. Understanding these categories is the first step in mastering the technique. Each type requires a specific set of design choices, all aimed at effectively framing the view to serve your garden's composition.
The wall, ironically, is the single most important tool in this art of visual expansion. It is not merely a boundary, it is the frame and the sensor. A tall, plain wall establishes the garden's immediate boundary, forcing the eye to stop, while a carefully constructed window or aperture directs the gaze to the specific desirable element beyond. This act of selection, concealing the mundane to reveal the sublime, is crucial. A well-placed wall ensures that only the intended integrating natural surroundings occurs, eliminating visual clutter and intensifying the power of the borrowed scene. NK, or high borrowing, is perhaps the most dramatic form of Shakkei. This is where the distant mountain becomes a permanent fixture in your garden's backdrop. The designer does nothing to alter the mountain itself, of course, but everything within the garden is scaled and positioned to serve it. Stones mimic the mountain's shape. Paths lead the eye toward it, and foreground planting is kept low to prevent obstruction. This powerful application of landscape design principles fuses the scale of the immediate garden with the majesty of the massive natural feature.
Near borrowing is subtle and often used for intimacy. It involves using immediate neighboring elements, a beautiful stand of old-growth trees, a distinctive rock outcrop, or even a neighboring structure's charming details as part of the foreground or midground. Unlike distant borrowing, which requires framing the horizon, near borrowing requires careful alignment. The borrowed element is often hidden partially, like a magician's trick, to suggest its integration without revealing the property line. This careful positioning adds crucial visual depth in garden spaces that are often too small for large internal features.
In the Shakkei technique, every object in the garden is a tool for manipulating perspective. Scale and proportion are paramount. To make a borrowed distant object feel closer, designers might use smaller, more detailed elements in the foreground. Conversely, to make an already close borrowed element seem further away and grander, they might use proportionally larger foreground elements. This manipulation of scale, a true application of garden perspective tricks, is what ultimately dictates the successful integration and illusion of shared space. Framing is the active verb of Shakkei. It's the moment of choice. A borrowed element cannot simply be visible, it must be presented. This presentation is achieved through careful use of windows, openings in hedges, or gaps between structural elements. These frames act as artistic apertures, cropping the external landscape to highlight only the beauty and exclude any undesirable visual noise. This intentional cropping elevates the everyday external world into a work of art, which is the very essence of Japanese garden art.
Shakkei is also about what you don't see. Before you can effectively borrow a beautiful element, you must screen out the visual clutter, the power lines, the neighboring shed, the constant movement of traffic. Dense planting, layered hedges, or high, solid walls are essential tools for this. This act of visual censorship establishes a quiet, controlled environment, allowing the chosen, borrowed view to command the attention it deserves. It is the necessary preparation for effective borrowed scenery in design. Water features offer a unique opportunity for integrating natural surroundings. A pond or basin can reflect the sky, distant clouds, or even tall borrowed structures, doubling the visual impact and bringing the sky down into the garden. The reflection, too, becomes a borrowed scene, constantly changing with the light and the weather. This subtle technique works particularly well in small spaces, adding dynamic movement and immense depth without requiring any structural changes to the boundary itself. Not all borrowed scenery is permanent. Seasonal borrowing allows the garden to evolve throughout the year. The bare branches of a distant deciduous forest in winter might be framed to emphasize stark, graphic beauty, while the same spot in autumn yields an explosion of color. Designers intentionally select borrowed elements, knowing they will only be in bloom or at their peak for a few weeks, making their appearance a celebrated, temporary illusion in garden design that heightens the appreciation for the cyclical nature of time. Contrast is a powerful tool for achieving a sense of visual depth in garden spaces. By using dark, highly textured and large-leafed plants in the foreground and then sharply contrasting them with a brightly lit, simpler and more distant borrowed scene, the garden achieves a dramatic sense of recession. The foreground acts as a visual anchor, making the borrowed element feel both further away and more compelling, drawing the viewer's eye across the space and reinforcing the illusion of distance. Horizontal borrowing is achieved by leading the viewer's eye along a horizontal plane, often with a pathway or a low linear feature. The path in the garden should appear to flow directly into the borrowed landscape, suggesting a continuous, unbroken space. This clever manipulation of line, a core landscape design principles technique, is highly effective in urban or suburban settings where the horizontal expanse of a street or distant park can be integrated. It creates a powerful sense of movement and connection beyond the confines of the wall. Sometimes, the most magnificent element to borrow is one that belongs to everyone: the sky. Vertical borrowing of the sky and clouds can turn even the smallest patio into a vast celestial landscape. This is often achieved by strategically pruning tall trees within the garden to create vertical shafts or windows that frame the overhead drama. The ever-changing nature of the clouds and light ensures that the borrowed scene is dynamic, always presenting a new canvas that elevates the garden's tranquility. To truly appreciate the Shakkei technique, we must look to its masters in Kyoto. During the Muromachi and Edo periods, garden designers elevated this technique to a high art. Gardens like Shisendo meticulously borrowed the distant mountains of Higashiyama, making them appear like intimate components of the small temple grounds. These examples are the original blueprint for Japanese landscaping secrets, demonstrating a profound understanding of how to use limited space to achieve visual infinity by perfectly integrating the borrowed scenery. You don't need a mountain to practice Shakkei. This is where the subtlety of borrowed scenery and design shines in urban environments. A distinctive church steeple, the canopy of a neighbor's magnificent tree, or even the graphic quality of a well-designed modern facade can be borrowed. The key is strict editing. Screen out the fire escapes and air conditioning units and highlight that one beautiful detail. This selective framing the view transforms the city's chaos into a curated backdrop for your personal oasis. The success of the illusion in garden design hinges on continuity. The borrowed element must not look like an accident. It must look inevitable. This is achieved by echoing the borrowed landscape's features inside your garden. If you borrow a rocky hillside, place smaller, similar rocks in your foreground. If you borrow a stand of pines, use a pine tree variety inside your garden. This repetition, guided by landscape design principles, tricks the mind into believing the space is a single, continuous entity. While Shakkei is primarily visual, it often extends to sound. Borrowing the gentle murmur of a distant stream, the rhythmic chiming of a church bell, or the rustling of wind through a neighboring stand of bamboo enhances the atmosphere. The garden is designed to amplify these external sounds while dampening others. This sensory integration of the external environment transforms the tranquility of the garden, adding another layer to the integrating natural surroundings philosophy and deepening the overall experience. The true master of Shakkei technique sees the garden from a fixed perspective, the main viewing point, perhaps from a key window or a specific bench. The entire composition is built around this single vantage point. The borrowed element must look perfect only from here. Move a few feet and the illusion may break. This focused approach ensures the maximum impact of the borrowed scene, turning the act of viewing into a meditative practice, which is central to Japanese garden art. The boundary line itself can be manipulated subtly. Rather than a straight, uniform wall, a gentle dip in the height of a hedge or a slight curve in a fence can be used to reveal the borrowed view precisely where the designer wants it. This deliberate modification ensures that the desired element is not merely visible, but is presented like a gift on a carefully lowered platter. This subtle shaping is a delicate garden perspective trick that requires patience and foresight during construction. The principle of yohaku, or the beauty of empty space, is an ally of Shakkei. By leaving vast areas within the garden sparsely planted or covered in plain raked gravel, the designer intentionally avoids internal focal points. This deliberate emptiness forces the viewer's eye to travel past the boundary and find the anchor in the borrowed scenery. This use of negative space is an effective illusion in garden design, making the distant, borrowed element feel like the true, inevitable centerpiece of the entire composition. While traditionally focused on nature, a clever Shakkei technique can borrow elements of human creation, provided they are aesthetically pleasing and stable. A distant bell tower, a beautiful arch of a bridge, or a charming, unique old house can serve as a striking backdrop. The key is that these elements must be visually static and contribute a sense of cultural depth or history to the composition, thereby adding unexpected layers to the garden's overall sense of place. A master of Japanese garden art understands how light and shadow affect the borrowed scene. Using dark, heavily shaded areas in the foreground can make the brightly lit borrowed view seem even more distant and ethereal. The darkness acts as a visual curtain, setting the stage for the dramatic revelation of the light-filled external world. This interplay of light and shadow, a fundamental landscape design principles technique, is what creates the dynamic, living nature of the borrowed scene throughout the day. The art of borrowed scenery in design is a commitment. Once the perfect borrowed view is established, a gardener must remain vigilant. Hedges must be meticulously trimmed to maintain the frame. Internal trees must be pruned to prevent them from eventually obscuring the vista. The act of preservation is as important as the act of creation. Maintaining the integrity of the sightlines ensures that the powerful visual depth in garden spaces remains intact for generations to enjoy. The Shakkei technique offers us a profound lesson that true beauty is often found not in accumulation, but in connection. By learning to be selective, to frame and to integrate, we turn the world outside our walls into a collaborative masterpiece. Your garden, no matter its size, can become a window to infinity, a peaceful space that effortlessly blends your private world with the majestic tapestry of nature beyond. We hope this journey into Japanese landscaping secrets inspires you to look past your own boundaries and see the infinite potential in your view. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more journeys into the art of thoughtful design.